because it was quiet. No people, no stress, just long hours and a flashlight. For the first few months, nothing happened. Then I found the first note. It was sitting on the hood of my patrol car when I came back from checking one of the buildings. A small square of folded paper. No envelope, no tape, just placed there. I assumed it was a prank, maybe a coworker messing with me. The note only had 4 words written in shaky handwriting. "You missed a spot." I laughed it off. That night, I had skipped checking one of the rear stairwells. It was always locked. I got lazy. I told myself it was coincidence. The next night, I made sure to check every single area. When my shift ended, there was another note. This one was taped to my driver's side window. Better. I didn't laugh that time. There were no other cars in the lot, no cameras facing that angle, no footprints in the gravel. I reported it to my supervisor. He shrugged and told me to stop overthinking it. That's when the note started getting specific. A week later, I found one inside Building C on the desk in a vacant office. I hadn't been in that room yet. The note read, "You forgot to lock the back door." My stomach dropped because I had forgotten. I remember doing it after. I checked the security logs. No badge entries. No alarms triggered. Someone had been walking the property without being detected. I started carrying my flashlight everywhere. Started listening instead of zoning out. That's when I noticed the footsteps, not behind me, ahead of me, soft, slow, like someone pacing themselves to match my speed. Whenever I stopped, the footsteps stopped. Whenever I turned around, there was nothing. I stopped finding notes for a while, almost 2 weeks. I convinced myself it was over. Then I found one taped inside my patrol car, on the steering wheel. "You shouldn't sit with your back to the windows." I froze, because that was exactly how I parked every night during my breaks. That night, I didn't sit in the car. I stood outside with my back against the building. That's when the lights went out. Not all of them, just the ones closest to me. The rest of the lot stayed lit. I heard breathing, right next to my ear. Not loud, not rushed. Calm, like someone standing inches away. I didn't turn around. I don't know why. Every instinct screamed at me to run. But something told me if I turned, it would be worse. After what felt like forever, the lights flickered back on. The breathing stopped. There was a new note on the ground. I hadn't heard it fall. Good choice. I quit the next morning. Didn't give notice. Didn't explain. A month later, curiosity got the better of me. I drove past the business park during the day. Police cars were everywhere. Turns out, they found a man living inside the walls of Building C. He had cut through the drywall between offices, created crawl spaces, hidden observation holes. They said he had been there for years. When they cleaned out the space, they found hundreds of notes, all written in the same shaky handwriting. Most of them were instructions, schedules, patrol patterns. Mine were pinned to a board. There was one more note. This one wasn't about me. It just said, "The next one won't be as careful. I still check my mirrors at night, and I don't work security anymore."
This happened 3 years ago, right before New Year's Eve, during one of the worst snowstorms my town had seen in decades. I live in a small rural area where houses are spread far apart The kind of place where help isn't exactly close by, even on a good day. That night, weather warnings were non-stop. Blizzard conditions, zero visibility, and emergency services stretched thin. Everyone was advised to stay indoors. I listened. By around 8 p.m., the snow was coming down sideways. The wind howled so loudly it sounded like something alive circling the house. My power flickered twice before finally cutting out completely. No lights, no heat, no internet. Just the storm and the sound of ice cracking against the windows. I lit a few candles and tried to calm myself, telling myself it was just one long, uncomfortable night. I had blankets, food, and my phone still had some battery, so I told myself it would be fine. For a while, it even felt peaceful, almost like the storm had erased the rest of the world. That illusion didn't last. At around 9:30 p.m., I heard 3 loud knocks on my front door. Not the wind, not debris. Slow, deliberate, heavy knocks. I froze. Nobody should have been out there. The roads were buried. Visibility was near zero, and I knew no one could have traveled in this weather. I moved toward the door slowly, heart racing, and looked through the peephole. At first I saw nothing but swirling snow. Then a fog appeared. A man, maybe in his late 30s or early 40s, beard frozen over, eyes wide and unblinking. He didn't look cold. He wasn't shouting for help. He was just staring straight at me. "Hello?" he called, calm. "My car broke down. I just need to use your phone." Something about him felt wrong. His tone didn't match the situation at all. Anyone stranded in a storm like this should have been frantic, panicking, or at least visibly scared. This man sounded rehearsed. I told him I couldn't open the door, but offered to call emergency services. After a long pause, he said, "They won't make it in time." "You know that." I backed away, grabbing the fireplace poker. My phone had 1 bar of service. I tried calling 911, but the call wouldn't connect. Another knock hit the door, harder this time. "Please," he said sharply. "It's freezing out here." I looked through the peephole again. He was closer now, forehead pressed to the wood, eyes angled unnaturally like he was trying to see through it. Then I noticed something that made my stomach drop. There were no footprints in the snow behind him. None. The storm had been raging for hours. The ground around him was untouched. My hands shook. I told him again that I wasn't opening the door. That's when his expression changed. All friendliness vanished. His mouth flattened, his eyes narrowed. He leaned in closer and said quietly, "I wasn't asking." The knocking turned into pounding. I ran to the back of the house, locking myself in my bedroom. The pounding continued, mixed with the wind and something else, scraping, like fingernails dragging across wood. At one point, I heard him laughing, softly, amused. Then suddenly it stopped. I stayed locked in that room until morning. When I finally stepped outside, there were no footprints, no tire tracks, no sign anyone had ever been there. Later that day, I learned another family 5 miles away had reported the same thing. Someone knocking on their door during the storm. When they opened it, no one was there, but deep scratches were carved into the wood, right at hand level. I've never opened my door during a snowstorm since, because whatever was out there that night didn't need shelter. It was already right where it wanted to be. The second story comes from Emily, a long-haul truck driver. It happened one winter night while she was driving through a mountain pass. She hadn't expected a storm, but within an hour, heavy snow reduced visibility to almost nothing. Roads disappeared under snowdrifts, and she had to pull into an isolated rest stop to wait it out. The rest stop was completely empty. No other trucks, no lights, just snow piling up fast. Emily kept the engine running for heat, trying to stay awake, when she heard someone knocking on the side of her truck. At first, she thought it might be another driver. She rolled down the window slightly. A woman's voice called out, saying her car had gotten stuck down the road and that she was freezing. Emily looked outside and saw her standing a few feet away, She wore a thin jacket, completely inadequate for the weather. But what immediately seemed wrong was that there was no snow on her clothes and no footprints leading to her. The snow around her boots was completely untouched. Emily tried to convince her to go inside the rest stop building. She said it was locked. Then the woman stepped closer and asked Emily to open her truck. Emily refused. The woman began pounding on the truck and screaming, accusing Emily of letting her freeze. Suddenly she stopped. She stood still for a few seconds and slowly disappeared into the darkness. By morning, when Emily checked the area, there were no footprints, no cars, and no reports of anyone missing. The rest stop looked completely deserted, like she had imagined the encounter. Emily never stopped in isolated places during snowstorms again. The third story was told by Jason, who celebrated New Year's in a cabin deep in the woods with friends. A snowstorm hit faster than expected, burying the access road and cutting off cell service. Around 1 a.m., they heard footsteps crunching in the snow outside. Thinking it was one of their friends joking, they laughed it off, but no one was outside. Then they heard knocking at the door. A man's voice said he was lost and needed warmth. When they opened the door slightly, no one was there. Knocking continued. From the window, the walls, and even the roof. The sounds moved around the cabin methodically, like the building itself was being tested. Panic set in. They barricaded themselves in one room. The knocking continued through the night, accompanied by occasional scratching noises that sounded like fingernails on wood. By sunrise, the storm eased. When they finally checked outside, the snow around the cabin was untouched. No footprints, no tracks. Later, the cabin owner revealed the place had been abandoned for years after similar incidents. Jason and his friends never stayed in an isolated cabin again, especially during snowstorms.